Hi everyone, it's Vicky. I'm just finishing up knitting a pair of fingerless gloves and then I'm going to embroider them. So I'm just on this last part here. And I'll link the pattern below if you want to knit yourself some. So as you can see, these are both finished and they're the same size, which is quite important. I am going to line them with some fleece. So this is the fleece I'm going to use, and I'm going to line this glove, this fingerless glove, with the fleece. Now I've made some of these for myself, so I know they work. The fleece has got a bit of stretch in it, not that way, but this way it's got some stretch in it, so I know the fleece will stretch. And if I measure against my own hand, that is about right. Put a marker there. And you can see that will fit fine for the glove. So I'm going to cut the fleece here, make a little line, just cut along the line. And so that's the width, and now I need the height, and it's just got to be less than the glove because I'm going to sew it just onto the inside of the glove and I don't want it to show from the outside. So I think there will be fine. And let's make sure this shape is about the same. So you can see it measures up almost the same, and I'm going to measure the same amount here. I could have done this off the big piece of fabric and saved this, but I wanted to show you on camera and I couldn't fit it all on my desk. I'm trying not to be noisy and bump the desk. And the last one. There we go. So if you are making something similar and you need to know the measurements, this is that measurement, and mine is 8 1/4 inches, and the length is 6 1/4. And my gloves measure out at, well, not stretched, it's 7 inches by almost 7 inches, but this will stretch like I said before. So that's done. Okay, so my fleece is cut and ready to go. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to fold my fleece in half. I'm going to line it up next to one of my gloves. You can see that's how it will fit inside the glove. When I sew my gloves, I normally start at that first ridge there and I leave 2 squares and then I sew at the second ridge, but that's when I'm making gloves for myself. These are going to be a gift and I don't know how it's going to fit the hand of the person I'm giving it to, so I'm going to leave 3 holes. That will give it a bigger gap there so the thumb can get in and out and your thumb can move around some more. If it's too tight, your thumb can't move. So I'm going to do 3. So let me explain. I'm going to go up to that first ridge and I'm going to put a pin there, and then I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 squares and I'm going to put a pin at that ridge there. Okay, I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew up to that pin and I'm going to stop. I'm going to sew from there to that pin and I'm going to stop, and that will give me the insert for my glove with a thumb hole, which will go inside this a bit later. And because I've got two the same, I'm going to mark this other one in the same place. So my thumb holes will be the same. And I'll be back in a few seconds and you will see that all stitched. So I'm back from the sewing machine and I've sewn where I showed you, and I did a back stitch so the sewing parts won't come undone, and there's the glove, and it does stretch. So that's the inside, that's ready to go. Now I've got my glove and I wanted to add some embroidery onto this just to make it a little bit more personalized. So the gloves fit like this, and there's that thumb hole. So I was thinking of putting a bit of embroidery just here by the wrist. So I'm going to find a pretty thread to use. I was thinking of a yellow, but maybe a nice peach would do. And yellow insides for those flowers. And flowers always need some leaves, so I think I'll do those for leaves. So I have this massive needle, which is probably a bit overkill. However, I'll be able to fit that whole thread in without a lot of effort. And I think the holes are big enough that it can take it. Let's put this one back. There. This is Embroidery stabilizer. This is what I use in my embroidery machine. So I'm going to just put a piece behind my embroidery, and that's going to help hold the knots in place and hold those embroidery stitches in place. You're not going to see it because I'm lining it with the fleece, and I'll cut away what I don't need. So I'm going to start with the petals, and I'm going to do lazy daisy stitches, and I'm going to make some daisy style flowers. I start with a knot. You don't have to. You can start without a knot if you prefer. Now my embroidery stabilizer is there, and you can see it's holding my knot at the back. Now I'm going to start doing my lazy daisy stitches, and I'm going to make sure that I keep all stitches the same size. So I'm not looking at the fabric underneath because the holes in my knitting will change size and the stitches are different shapes as it goes sideways or long ways. So I'm just focusing on my stitches now. I'm not worrying about the fabric underneath, and you will see it will just be so pretty. See what it looks like underneath. I wanted to do 5 stitches, but I don't think I spaced it very well, so it looks like I could have got 2 stitches in there, made it 6 petals. Let's do another one over here. I'm just going to do those two on that side, and I'm going to knot it on the back. I should do the green first. I love putting the yellow in the middle of the flowers, but let me do the green first. That's the leaves, and as you can see, my thread got a bit knotted up. Is what happens. And I'm going to put a knot in the back again, and I just put the leaves wherever it feels like a leaf should go. Normally put 2 leaves per flower. And the leaf is exactly the same as the petal, so it's that same stitch. I'm not sure if it needs another leaf. I think 4 will be fine. And time to knot this one off. Time for that yellow and those lovely centers of the flowers. The centers of the flowers, I'm going to do French knots. Now I've gone through that a few times, so I'm not pulling all the way through because it'll pull right through that paper. So I'm just being a bit gentle there. And I'm trying to find something to pick up because I don't even think there's a stitch there or any fiber or anything. It's just the paper, the backing paper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's make it 5. It'll be nice and chunky. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Lovely. Okay, let's do one on the next side. And again, I'm going to just dig around and find something to attach it to because there isn't a whole lot of fibers and threads available in that space. 2, 3, 4, 5. And there we go. And again, I'll knot it off on the back. Cuts it off. I can cut off that spare piece because I don't need that anymore. And there it is. Isn't that beautiful? Just a little bit of extra to the edge of that glove. Now, because gloves are right and left-handed, I'm going to do a similar embroidery there. I'm going to try to do it the same, but we'll see how that goes. So we need some more of this because I finished that piece I used. I'm going to knot this again. I probably could use that piece of paper there, which will help me keep in the right space. And I'm just going to hold it with one hand. So I had one flower that was sort of to the top and one that was sort of down. As I say, I'm going to try to do it the same, but we'll see. And that pulled all the way through, so I need to do a bigger knot. Pulled all the way through the paper. See that? Just move it that way. Okay, let's try again. Okay, so I'm going to trim this a bit closer to the edges. And just trim off those corners a bit so they don't stick out through the knitting. And I'll do the same thing on this side. So I'm not cutting my threads. I'm just trimming off the corners and the bulky bits that aren't necessary. There we go. Let's get that big needle again. I'm going to sew up the sides of the glove, and like I explained before, I'm going to sew up to that first ridge. So I'm going to start from the outside, and I go twice on that first stitch because I feel like that needs a bit of reinforcement. I'm sure there's a much neater way to sew up seams, but this is what I do. Every now and again, while I'm stitching up this pattern, I'm making sure that everything lines up. It's very easy with knitting for things to stretch and then they don't line up. And you get to the other end and suddenly you've got a whole bunch of extra space on one side. Okay, so there's my first ridge. So I've sewn over that stitch twice. Now I'm going to go to the inside and I'm going to just go back in a little way. I'm going to do a little knot, and then I'm just going to feed that yarn through a little bit further and backwards. And trim it off. That's one side done. And I did it up to the first ridge. This is the top of that same glove, so I'm using the other thread now. Don't forget to line everything up a bit. So go through twice on the first one, just to give it a bit more strength. So I'm counting 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 squares open. I'm going to get to the ridges before the 3 squares, and that's the end, and I'm going to go through that one twice, and if I open it up you'll be able to see 1, 2, 3. I'm going to take that to the inside. I'm going to pull it through, take my needle down a little way, tie a knot, go forward a little bit, and go back. Okay, first glove is done. So I'll just work on the next one. Alright, second glove is done, and now it needs to be lined. So I'm putting the glove inside out, and I'm putting this inside out. I'm using the smaller side at the bottom, and I'm putting the glove inside here. So wrong sides are facing. Make sure the thumb holes line up. The other way I can make sure things line up is I can feel the seam where I sewed it together, and that should be near to this seam here. And I'm going to stretch my fleece so that the knitting fits nicely and smoothly on the inside. Just smooth around this part here. And then I'm going to go up to the top and make sure my seam is where that seam is. And same thing, just sort of line things up a little bit. And once again, make sure you've got a thumb hole in the right place. So I'm going to start at the bottom. I've got a thread, normal sewing thread, a needle. I'm going to take my needle from the back to the front, and that knot that I've made will catch in the fleece. I can tuck my end inside. I'm going to go closer to the edge, and now I'm just going to be sewing my knitting onto the fleece, and the hand at the bottom is just making sure everything's smooth on the inside there. And stretch your fleece to fit the knitting. The knitting will definitely stretch, but you need the fleece to stretch for the knitting in this case. And my thread is doubled. I feel like it just gives it a little bit more strength. You will not see my stitches on the other side because they disappear into the knitting stitches. And if you can hear any shouting in the background, it's the children coming out of school, not my children. Basically, I'm trying to stitch the fleece on, and I'm making the space between the stitches small enough that a finger can't get stuck in there. So if you put your fingers into the glove, you don't want to get your fingers stuck into the lining. So all I'm doing is making those stitches close enough that the finger doesn't get stuck in, but I'm not trying to be a sewing machine. I'm just trying to stitch this onto the fleece. You can see I'm almost back to the beginning. My beginning thread is trying to come out, so I'll just tuck it back in. A bit thick there because I've got the fleece to go through and it's doubled over. Right, so I've done all the way around. It still stretches nicely and opens. I'm going to do a knot near the edge and then tuck my threads into the middle part. I'll show you. Okay, so I've done a knot, and I'm going to put that needle between the knitting and the fleece and just take it up about a needle's length, and we'll just trim it off there, and it'll work its way inside. And now I'm going to do the top, and I'm going to do the same thing as before. I'm going to start from underneath the fleece, pull my needle through, hide that end, make sure my seams are lined up so I can feel the seam from this one and I can feel the seam from that one. And for this one, I'm going to make sure I try and go all the way around on the same level. So you can see that row of stitches there, those ridges. I'm going to try and go all the way around on the same level. And finally, I'm going to turn it inside out. Check everybody's in the right place. I think that looks beautiful and so fluffy and warm. These are best done inside out. So I'm going to turn it back inside out. I'm going to, if you can see here, that fleece just needs to be folded over a bit. So can you see here, there's a seam allowance on both sides. Well, there's no seam allowance there, so that part needs to be folded over, and then you sew it like that into the woolen section, the knitted section. It's getting a bit darker, and I should probably put the light on, but I just wanted to finish this quick. All right, so I'm finding where the seam is, and I've got my own seam here. I'm going to come in from the fleece side, so I can tuck away my thread, and I'm starting with the knitting into the fleece. That's how I'm sewing it. I'm folding this part here, and again you need these stitches close enough that the thumb can't get caught in the gap. Everything's getting caught in this thread. So I've folded over that piece of fleece now, and just lining everything up as best I can. The knitting will definitely stretch to whatever shape you need it to be. The fleece doesn't stretch as much, so make it fit the fleece. I'll do 2 stitches here at the top just to reinforce it, and I'm bending over my fleece again, tucking it in a bit, and then finding that knitted part and sewing it together. Easing everything to fit all the way along. And then back to the beginning. So I'll stitch there twice. I will find a spot near the edge to do my knot. And then I'll take that thread through the layers out to the side somewhere. And there you have one lined glove. It's a fingerless glove. So let me do the next one, and then I'll be done. And my gloves are done. They look so lovely. There's a left and a right. And these are so cozy and warm. I've got a pair that I made for myself last year. I've actually got 2 pairs. Lining them was the best thing I ever did. I keep them in my pocket of my jacket, and I've got another pair in my car, and whenever it feels a bit cold, then I just pull out my gloves, and very toasty. Because they're fingerless gloves, your thumb is free and your fingertips are free, so you can drive, you can drink coffee. But anyway, these are a gift, and I just think they look beautiful. So thanks for watching, and have a good day. Bye.